Okay. Oh, it's 10:30. Welcome to the Meco Graphics webinar. This is David Goldstein. I'm the president of Meco Graphics, and I will walk you through some questions that our customers have been asking us. These have come from the Ask an Expert feature in Meco Graphics. We've been accumulating them over the last few months, and we thought it would be a great way to share with you some of the tips and tricks that we've shared with some of our customers individually. So we will do that for, I think, about half an hour, but we will also save some time so that if you've got some specific questions, feel free to ask them, and we will cover them at the end of the session. So please, if you'd like to ask a question, please use the chat feature in GoToWebinar, and we will have someone monitoring the chat session, and we will either respond right away or save it up, respond right away from one of my colleagues, or I will respond at the end and share it with the entire group. We've got about 25 people signed on to the webinar at the moment, and I expect some others to join as we keep going. So let me just jump right in and talk to you a little bit about some of the questions that our customers have been asking us. And to do this, I'll use a combination of showing you charts that I've made and actually making charts to show you some of the features of Meco Graphics and how to use them. So the first couple of questions are part of a common set of questions that we often get, and those are the which chart should I use kinds of questions. I've got some data, I want to show it. What chart would you recommend I use to show the data? And one of the questions that we've gotten several times, we just took Pooja's version of the question, is I've got some P&L data, profit and loss data, for several years, and I want to show them, and I want to show trends over time in profits, in revenues and expenses. So the chart that we recommend for that is a simple stacked bar chart with a couple of features added. So what we have here is the stacked bar chart where we've got revenue shown positively above the bar and our expense categories in negative numbers sitting below the bar, so you can see the growth in revenue by tracking the positive numbers and the growth in expenses by tracking the negative numbers. And we've added a couple of features. You might not want to have all of these features in every P&L chart that you produce. You might want to include some and not others. You might want to include some that we haven't included. One of the features that I really like is the net line, which is a Meco Graphics feature, and you can add a net line to any stacked bar chart and to some of our other chart types as well. And the net line here is actually showing you net profits for net income for the company, and you can see net income growing from 37 billion to 63 billion. The second thing that we did was we added a cagar column to the chart, and the cagar column shows the annual growth rate in each of the revenue and each of the expense categories. So you can see that revenue is growing over that period at 16% per year, whereas R&D expenses are growing at a significantly higher 30% per year. And we added some data rows to the bottom of the chart, and the data rows are there to show gross margin and net margin percentage. So we're looking at percent profitability captured in the data rows. So that's, like I said, that's a lot of features. You might not want to have all of them. You might want to call out one or another depending on what you're trying to show with the chart. But we found that this is a really nice way to show something that to graphically show what's a simple version of what's in your profit and loss statement. The other thing that we did here was we aligned, we showed the labels as a legend, and we use a Meco Graphics feature to align the legend to the cagar column so that you can see, it's pretty easy to see what, to see the cagar and to see what it corresponds to in the chart. So that's my first chart. That's my first, what chart should I use question answered. The second one comes from Stephen, and he was asking about showing components of revenue and components of expenses. And his notion was, what's the one chart I should use to show the components of my revenue and the components of my expenses, again, over a period of time. And the recommendation we came back to Stephen with was, maybe you're better off with more than one chart rather than one chart. And maybe you're better off with a revenue mix chart and a cost mix chart. And in Meco Graphics, you do have the easy ability to put two charts on a slide, and two stacked bars, each with 6 bars, and legend and a cagar does actually fit pretty well on a half page sized chart. So that's what we did here, and we used the 100% stacked bar chart instead of the stacked bar chart because we were focused on mix changes. And I'm a big fan of 100% stacked bar charts. I think they do a great job of showing changes in revenue and changes in mix. I'm just going to grab my camera and move it in front of me because I've been turning to my side. I apologize for that. To look at myself in my camera, I'm better off looking at myself when it's right in front of me. So so we've got these charts, the 100% stacked, which is a great way, as I said, for showing mix. And the one downside of a 100% stacked bar chart is it doesn't show the growth in any of these categories over time because each of them is shown at the 100% level. So again, we added the cagar columns to the chart to show the growth over time. So those are my two which chart should I choose questions. The next set of questions jump right in and look at our different chart types, and these are users who've asked us questions, customers that have asked us questions typically about how to do something in a specific chart type. So I'm going to move out of slideshow mode and move into regular PowerPoint so I can actually jump in and take a look at some of these charts. So the first one is a Marimekko question, and it's a sorting question. And the question came from Michael, and he'd like to put one specific company always at the bottom of his market maps, always at the bottom of his Marimekko charts. Typically, if you're making a Marimekko chart, you are sorting your segments so that the biggest is on the bottom. But sometimes you want your company to be on the bottom, even if it's not the biggest, and then you want each of your competitors sorted from largest to smallest in each of the regions. So the question is, how do you do that? And we've got this question asked to us a fair number of times over the years, and in response to that, we added a feature to Meco Graphics to allow you to exclude a series from a sort. And I'm going to show you how to do that. I double-clicked. Now I'm going to move to my Format Bars and Series dialog task pane, which is over here. And then you can see in my series, I'm going to make this a little wider so you can see it a little better. In my series, I've got a column called Sort Order. This is something we introduced in Meco Graphics 7.5, so if you have an earlier version, you won't see this column. And here under FedEx, I selected always on the bottom. So if I put this back to sorted, you can see that FedEx appears on the bottom in Americas, but higher up in Europe and Asia. but if I click on the bottom, FedEx is always going to appear on the bottom. And the other sorting features in Mekko Graphics are here in the Format Chart dialog. And just to show you here, we selected sorting order for our series biggest on bottom. So it's going to sort everything biggest on bottom except for the series that we said exclude from sort, which we did in the Format Bars and Series dialog. So hopefully that helps you. Like I said, it's a common request, and that will get you on board to deal with that request. So the next request is a related one, and just to show you that we can also sort and put a specific bar on the top of our chart. So Kurt asked us that he'd like to sort largest to smallest, but he'd always like to have a specific bar plotted last, plotted on the top of the chart. Sometimes we would do that by using an other series, which is a Mekko Graphics feature that we've had for a while. And if you have an other series, you can then include other smaller segments in the other series. And also the alternative to that is basically to go into bars and series. So I'll show you both of those in bars and series. So one alternative in bars and series is, as I did before, exclude DHL from the sort order and put it on the top. The other alternative in bars and series is series options, choosing a series as other or creating a new series as other, and then that other series will also automatically appear on top. And the other benefit of the other series, pardon the redundancy, is that you can include smaller segments from different bars in that other series, which is very helpful in cleaning up your chart and getting your readers focused on the most important segments in each bar. So those are my two of my Marimekko related questions. I think we're kind of Marimekko heavy on the questions. The third one is a question that we got from Megan, and she wanted each of her bars in a Marimekko chart to be the same width. We have gotten several questions about bar widths in a Marimekko chart. The default for a Marimekko chart is to make the width of the bar proportionate to the bar total for that bar. So by default, the goal 1 is going to be 150 divided by 340 as the percent of the bar, and bar 2 is going to be 100 divided by 340, et cetera, et cetera. But in Mekko Graphics, you do have the ability to set the bar widths of each bar to be whatever you want them to be, and I will show you how to do that. To do that, you open your data sheet in Mekko Graphics, and you add a third row, an extra row to your data sheet, and I tend to call that row bar width. And then you want to tell Mekko Graphics that you want to use this row as the bar width. So I click on Set as Bar Width. And then now I can use any numbers here I want. If I want all the bars to be the same width, I can just make all of these 1. Let me see if I close this. Yeah, you can see all of the bars here are the same width. If I wanted my first bar to be twice as big as all my other bars, I could just change it to 2, and you can see here that my first bar is now twice as big as all my other bars. Clearly, if you wanted your bars to be related to another variable, say your bar width to be related to another variable, you can use that variable for your bar width. I've seen examples where bar width is related to a region's population and you would just do the same and call this population, and again do set as bar width, and then that data will not appear on the chart. That series will only be used to set the bar width. So it's a nice little feature. You might not use it a lot, but it can come in handy. Next, I wanted to do a more complicated question. This question we got from Christopher, and it is a question related to what some people call heat maps. Sometimes you want your segments in a chart to be colored based on some red, yellow, green formula, and here Christopher wants the color of the rectangle to be based on something he called net flows, which he gave us in a separate data sheet. And I'm going to just bring up Excel so you can see what we are talking about. So he wanted the colors for each of these portfolio items to be related to this bar here, which is flows. And if that bar is very negative, he wanted the item to be colored in a dark red. And if that bar is very positive, a dark green, and then lighter greens and whites in between. So to do that, basically, let me see if I can start this, get this back to where it was at the start. Okay, so at the start, everything is going to be white. So now Excel has the ability through conditional formatting to color these cells, which I'm going to do here using color scales, using this green, red, white color scale. Now this bar is colored correctly, and now the question is, how do I get the colors from this bar to these other bars, from this column to these other columns? And unfortunately, there's not an easy way to do that in Excel. You have to do a little research. Once you do the research, you find the best way, unfortunately, to do this is to copy this column, move it into Microsoft Word. I know it's a hack. Paste the column into Word, keeping the source formatting. Copy the column from Word, paste it back into Excel, again keeping the source formatting. And now what we can do is copy this column and paste it here, but only paste the formatting with this paste special formatting button. So now my data, which is here, has the appropriate colors. And I know this is a little convoluted, a little long to do, but it actually does give you a good heat map. So I'm going to copy this data, and if you want a heat map, this is probably the easiest way to get it. I'm going to insert a new slide just to show you there's nothing up my sleeve. Insert a Marimekko chart on the slide. Paste my data that I copied from Excel. And you can see the cells are colored appropriately. And now the last thing to do is to go into the format chart, and then in the style button we've got apply cell colors from spreadsheet. So this will, instead of using your default palette, we'll use the colors of the cells in the spreadsheet in Mekko Graphics, in the segment colors. So there, I made the final click, and you can see that my segments are colored. If I want to sort them to make it look like the current chart, you can see they are now sorted. And there you go. You've got a Marimekko chart with a heat map built on top of it. So you can use your color as another dimension in your chart, which can be a valuable addition to the chart. Great. I know that was complicated, but hopefully you followed it. And if you have questions about it, please ask me, and I will try to work you through them. The next question is related to Debar Memoco charts, and the user here, Ted, wanted to color each bar in the Debar Memoco differently. By default, the bars in the Debar Memoco are all going to be the same color, and to do that, not very difficult. Basically, what you need to do is lay out your data, you can see in my data sheet here, in a way such that each bar is in a unique series, because we color based on series in Marimekko. So here, basically, all my data is on a diagonal. So Norway has its own series, Denmark has its own series, et cetera, et cetera. So it's this simple little change gives you each bar in the same, in a different color, and those colors follow the colors of your color palette. Of course, if you don't have a lot of bars, you can also easily just right-click. Even if everything is laid out in a single series, you can right-click and then just go in and recolor your segments. I find that recoloring segments works well for Debar Memoco charts that have maybe under 10 series, 10 bars, and using the diagonal approach probably works better if it's 10 or more bars. But that's just that's with my speed in coloring, and your speed might be slightly different. Great way to get a Debar Memoco laid out with different with bars of different colors. Next chart, next set of questions involve cascade charts, which is also a really common chart type for our customers. And the question was, can I reverse the x-axis on a cascade chart? And again, this is a feature that our customers have asked for a while, and we included it in version 7.5. So if you have an earlier version than 7.5, you cannot do this, but in 7.5, you can reverse your axis scales in a cascade. And I will show you how to do that. So there are two places you can do that. We've got the layout button here in our ribbon. And here for vertical cascades, you've got reverse axis scale. So that's how it comes from the factory, out of the box. And if I reverse my axis scale, it will go from right to left instead of, your bars will go from right to left instead of from left to right. And also in the cascade, you can change it from a horizontal to a vertical. And in a vertical cascade, you can put your y-axis on the top or the bottom. So you've got a bunch of different options for a cascade depending on how you want it to look. Horizontal, vertical, reverse scale, axis on top, axis on bottom. So that gives you a bunch of different options, as I said. And aside from the layout button over here, also in the Format Chart task pane, which is my favorite task pane because it's got a lot of information in one place, you've got the layout options here as well, horizontal and vertical with these buttons. and you've got the y-axis swap here and the reverse axis scale here as well. So you can just open Format Chart if you forget where things are, and you can see that the layout options for all of our charts are in the Format Chart tab, Format Chart task pane in the general tab. Next question, we got this one from Siobhan, and she asked about coloring of a cascade chart, and she wanted the colors set up so that negative numbers were going to be colored in gray and positive numbers in gold. To do that, again, we can rely on the conditional formatting in Excel and then use that conditional formatting in Meco Graphics. So I will start with Excel. I will clear my conditional formatting, and then I would go in and select my bars, and I would do conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, greater than. If I say greater than 0, I want to be this nice gold. And again, I say highlight cells less than 0. I want to be this nice gray. Okay. So now you can see my cells are gold and gray. I can copy, go back to PowerPoint, open my data sheet, clear it, so now you can see my chart has gone away. Paste the data, and then again just make sure in the format chart, well, two things. One is make sure in the format chart under style you've got apply spreadsheet colors. If you don't have that, then it won't take the colors from the spreadsheet. And then I clearly want to right click on this bar and show it as a total. So there I am. I've got my data set up so that my positive bars in my cascade are gold and my negatives are gray, using Excel conditional formatting and using this apply cell colors from spreadsheet button in Meco Graphics. A couple more slides, and I will wrap up and open it up for questions from the attendees. The first one is on a 100% stack bar chart. The question involves looking at the data in the 100% stack bar chart, and can I have different data in different bars of my bar chart or different bars of my Marimekko chart, and if so, how do I do it? And the answer is yes, you can, and it really all involves laying out the data in your data sheet. The sheet are laid out such that each of your bars has a different set of series. So this middle bar, beer sales, is broken down by brands, and this third bar, region, is broken down by region, and this first sales and other sales, you can see that the data maps so that each bar is different and has a different set of data, in it. Very easy to do. I've seen this where each of these bars has a totally different scale. Maybe one bar is population and another bar of different different regions, and another bar is number of hotel rooms in those regions, and you can then sort of look at mixed changes between population and hotel rooms across the bars in the 100% stacked bar chart. So the data in different bars is different. And last, one more question which is very common is how do I create a cluster bar chart? And we took this question from Andrew. Sometimes you want to have a cluster bar chart where each bar is a stack, or conversely a stacked bar chart where your bars are clustered together. To do this in Mekko Graphics, you need to start with a stacked bar chart. So the chart type here is stacked bar, and then in the bars and series dialog, under bar options, under series, under bar options, you have the cluster by button. We buried it a little, but it is also not used very often, and the default is 1, which is all your bars are separate. You can then cluster by 2, grouping them together, which is what would make sense here. Specific year, you can group them by 3 if you wanted, which doesn't make sense in this case. But that's where you do it. You just use that cluster by option in the format bars and series to cluster your bar charts together. Great. And my last chart example also has to do with a bar chart, and it came from Alex. And it has to do with cagar in a bar chart. And the question is, how do I add a total cagar to a stacked bar chart? So the answer here is there are a couple of ways to do that. The easiest way in Mekko Graphics is to add a growth line to the chart. And you just do that here by clicking growth line. And then one of the options for the growth line is to show as cagar. So that gives you the cagar right there, and Mekko Graphics does all of the calculation for you. The other option, if you want that cagar to be part of your cagar column instead, if you don't like it in the growth line, you can do that in your data sheet, which is what I did here. I have all of my series. I created a sum series, which I didn't show on my data sheet, and then I used that sum series to calculate a cagar for the sum using the Mekko Graphics cagar formula, which is just here, start value, end value, number of periods. And I added a dummy row which had no data in it, but had a value in the cagar column. And that gave me the 79% here for my total cagar. So again, you've got two options for showing that cagar in your stacked bar chart. So I kept to my time. I went through, I think, about a dozen different questions that came from our user group, our customer base, that covered how to choose charts and also how to use different Mekko Graphics features. There are a lot. I'm going to turn it open now for questions from the attendees. If you have them, please use the chat feature. I will stay on the line for a little while and answer any questions that come in, if any questions come in. And while I'm waiting for questions, let me just tell you about some of the things that we have available to help you get up to speed with Mekko Graphics and answer your questions. So first resource is our website, mekkographics.com, which has a whole series of training videos, a whole chart gallery with 150 plus chart examples that you can copy and paste into your PowerPoint presentation. the chart selection toolkit, which helps you answer the questions, which chart do I use? The strategy consultant toolkit. My favorite, the chart of the week blog, which I do every week with a very, I think, interesting topical chart that illustrates how you can use Mekko graphics, and probably is there to give you some ideas of what you can do with Mekko graphics charts. We've got a charting quotient blog post as well that has Mekko graphics tips and tricks. We have FAQs. We have their color palettes available for download from our website as well. If you've got questions that you can't find the answer to, we've got in the Mekko graphics toolbar email support, which includes this Ask an Expert for your charting questions, as well as email support for your technical questions. Plus, you can follow us. We're very big into social media on LinkedIn. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can follow Mekko Graphics on LinkedIn. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and we tend to post our charts of the week there, along with webinar announcements and new version announcements and anything else, any other relevant information from Mekko Graphics. So let me see where we are with respect to questions. Okay. Is there a way to link data from Excel into Mekko so I don't have to copy the data in it, but link so that the numbers can update? Yes. So the answer to that, assuming you are using the Windows version of Mekko Graphics rather than the Mac version of Mekko Graphics. So if you are using the Windows version of Mekko Graphics, there is a Mekko Graphics tab in Excel, and in the current version, you can highlight data, and then you can take that data and make a chart in PowerPoint or a chart in Excel from that data. So if I click here, if I want a chart in PowerPoint, and I want, let me go back to PowerPoint and give me a slide, give myself a slide onto which I want to put that chart. Go back to Excel, say give me a cascade chart. Come back over to PowerPoint. Now you see my cursor is a little Mekko Graphics chart. I click here, and now you can see that the border on my Mekko Graphics chart is green, which means the chart is linked to Excel data. Cascade, I come here and set my style to apply colors from the spreadsheet, and there I've got my my same chart. So then the question is, if my data in Excel changes, does my chart change? And the answer is, by default, no, the chart does not change, but the chart border here will change to red. So if I go back to the bar and here, and I make bar 5 minus 20, see how the color changes to gray because of the conditional formatting. And if I go back to PowerPoint, you can see my border is red, which says that the data in the chart do not match the data in Excel. And in my link to Excel, I can refresh my link, and now my data are updated. Of course, I should have updated my ending bar to match, but I neglected to do that. But in general, you will see that, and we do in Mekko Graphics have a Excel link manager. So if you want the data to automatically update when the chart changes, you can select the auto button here, and in which case a change in Excel will automatically lead to a change in PowerPoint. I don't recommend doing that unless you're really sure about it, but it is useful. And I also recommend having both the Excel and the PowerPoint open when you're using the link to Excel feature. So hopefully that answered your question. Let me see the next question. I would like to slowly learn the menu ribbon that is part of the new release while continuing to use the legacy editor, which I'm extremely familiar with. Is there a way to load the most recent update and keep the legacy editor? Those of you who are longtime Mekko Graphics users are probably used to using the what we used to call the full editor, and now we call. Unfortunately, the answer to that question is no. In the latest version of Mekko Graphics, we removed the legacy editor. So if you want to make edits, you have to use them. You have to use the built-in just the regular Mekko Graphics editor. We did that because we've been adding many features to Mekko Graphics. We found that it took twice as long to add a feature if we had to add it both to the full editor and to the regular Mekko Graphics editor. And once you get used to the current editor, you should see that it is as fast and as easy to use as the legacy editor. If this person has any specific questions or wants an offline tutorial, a one-on-one tutorial in how to use the ribbon, I am happy to do that and answer any questions related to this is how I did it in the legacy editor, how do I do it in the current Mekko Graphics ribbon. So I'm happy to answer those questions as well. I don't see any more questions. I will stick around online for another few minutes if you've got other questions, but otherwise, thank you for attending the webinar. I enjoyed giving the webinar and teaching you some of the things that we've shared one-on-one with our customers, and I invite you to take a look at our website and come to our next webinar, which will be in September, and we'll announce it on our website. Thanks so much, and have a great day.